I mean, we are just what? So to tee up this first clip, what's happening here earlier today, Pam Bondi is very reasonably being asked by journalists about the discrepancies between her past statements and actions, which we'll get to, regarding Jeffrey Epstein and the files, and the extraordinary announcement that arrived yesterday that basically no other people are going to be involved. There's no names. The DOJ has concluded their investigation. Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile acting all on his own. There was no orbit. So let's just watch this clip because I promise you it is indeed amazing.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the set?
Yeah, sure.
Pam, could I just interrupt for
Sure.
1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah.
This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
Yeah, we are.
That is unbelievable.
You should believe it.
Do you want to waste the time and do you feel like answering?
I do.
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein
Believe it.
at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
I'm not laughing. You're laughing. There's so much happening here. There's so much to unpack. It's amazing how stupid they think we are. First and foremost, what even is that Trump filibuster? Are you guys still interested? Are you guys still interested in that? Wow, I'm shocked because we are doing both amazing things in Texas. There are devastating and amazing. And what are we talking about with that is crazy. I mean, if you really want to talk about this guy, we can talk about this guy. But just so you know, we're doing some amazing and maybe some not so amazing things in Texas. Okay. Pam is taking notes like, okay, this gives me an opportunity to maybe come up with something on the spot. And what's incredible is that she refuses to assert whether or not Jeffrey Epstein was working for another intelligence agency, because we already know the answer to that. Yes, of course, he was working for Israel. Duh. That's why we're not allowed to know anything else about the Epstein files. But she's just like, that's unclear. We don't really know if he was doing that. We don't have the ability to determine that. And then this next part, which I want to be very clear here, that I am not saying this word as a slur. I am saying this in its true denotative meaning. Pam Bondi's explanation for why a minute of the prison tape is missing is retarded. Okay, it is a cognitively delayed response that she offers us there when that question is asked. Hey, why is a minute of the prison tape missing? Slow it down. What she says back here is that a minute of the footage is missing because the prison always removes 1 minute of the footage every night, like since the 90s, like it's daylight savings minute. and they just got to remove a minute. And so they're just waiting for more time. They haven't had enough time, by the way. They just need a little more time so that they can get the evidence from the prison for why they had the daylight savings minute every night since the 1990s of the minutes that we would like to see maybe something happened. Huh? Please be my guest. Take a couple of seconds to digest that. Daylight savings minute. There's always that minute too in my house. We just delete 1 minute every night. We've been doing it for a very long time. So all of this is a little slow, my guys. It is just very delayed. Con retraso is what they say in Spanish, okay? The explanations here are just absurd. And what is most compelling to me, by the way, about the Trump filibuster is that it requires us to be so gaslit that we completely forget that nobody made more of a show of the Jeffrey Epstein files and the release of those files than the person sitting to the right of him, Pam Bondi. That's why we're here. Pam Bondi was the one who notoriously handed out binders to a bunch of online influencers on February 27th. Okay, that was supposed to be apparently phase 1. And then too many of those influencers decided to pose in like cute pics with the binders, okay? Like this, look at this influencer. Cute pic, just me with the binder. See that? It says in red print, in case you can't see it, the Epstein Files, phase 1. And ironically, when we took a look at some of those individuals, they were very new to the influencing scene, and they weren't even influencing that girl with the cute pic, Emily Austin. Nobody really knows who Emily Austin is, other than the fact that she's a radical Zionist that is currently being shoved down our mouths. They're like, you will take her, and they're desperately trying to make this girl happen. And somehow, at the beginning of her influencing career, she gets invited to the White House and is handed an Epstein binder, okay? And then she makes, a very influencing video about having that binder. Let's take a listen to it.
I saw y'all on the internet coming for Kash Patel saying he's day 5 and we haven't gotten the Epstein files. Well, I'm here outside the West Wing and look at what we got today. The Epstein files, baby. Let's make America safe again.
And then when people pointed out the fact that this felt extraordinarily staged, also noticing that nobody there had been critical of Israel, I don't know, kind of a big thing that we would want to see if we really feel like we're going to get to the heart of what's going on with Epstein. Then people were accused of just being jealous that they weren't invited to Pam Bondi's binder party. Like Pam Bondi, she had a binder party and you just weren't invited. That's why you're jealous. Okay. And like I said, strangely, not a single individual there had been critical of Israel in any way. But
so are there reasonable conclusions to be drawn here? And is this a messaging problem? Did they overpromise before they knew what the documents would show? Here to weigh in is Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch president, and Molly Hemingway, the Federalist editor-in-chief and Fox News contributor. Tom, here's what Kash Patel said about that Epstein client list shortly after he was nominated as FBI director. Watch.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Tom, he sounded pretty definitive there, so what changed?
I think they decided for political purposes they didn't want to include the individuals who were on these lists and put them in the public domain. And they were concerned that some of them may not have done something warranting the disclosure. I mean, that's the most charitable interpretation. But there is a list. There's no doubt. I mean, they talk about in the memo they wrote, well, there's no incriminating client list. Well, what does that mean? I want the non-incriminating client list. And of course, a client list is a term of art, right? Where are his associates? Where is the list of contacts? And we asked under our FOIA lawsuit, Pam Bondi, give us the documents that you say you were looking at. Give us documents about the release of these documents. You said the FBI was obstructing the release. They came back to us and said, we have nothing.
Molly.
Well, this is a proxy for what we've seen with so many big stories throughout the years where the American people just want to know what's going on with
whatever
assassination attempts, whether it's the one in Butler on Trump or the one that was successful against JFK, the Russia collusion hoax, the situation with Epstein. Everyone understands that there might not be a,
smoking gun.
Right,
or, yeah.
but no one feels very satisfied with the level of investigation that was taking place or the transparency. And it seems that the FBI and other government agencies care more about managing the narrative than actually just revealing the information that needs to be revealed.
And then we have interviews with former mobsters who actually was in the same jail as Epstein and had kind of a shocking claim. Watch.
Jeffrey Epstein would have to be a magician to try to hang himself in that cell. I was in that cell. There's no way there's nothing on the ceiling. The bedpost is this high. I couldn't even go to a restroom without them walking back and forth and having me on camera. There's no way he committed suicide.
Tom.
And Pam Bondi yesterday said that video they released isn't conclusive.
But it's a reset. That minute is a regular reset of the system.
And they're still looking for that minute. And to release video that doesn't show what happened in the cell isn't terribly persuasive. I'm not sure what they were expecting there. The fact is there are two competing forensics investigations, one by Epstein's family, which suggests that it was a homicide, and one by the examiner up in New York. He says it was a suicide. So given those issues, to say because the video doesn't show one way or the other whether someone went in there, to conclude, oh, well, there's nothing to investigate, seems odd. And they also said, we're not going to give you any more documents. And kind of with this, well, there are too many conspiracy theories out there. And I don't like to be dissed like that. And Americans, I think, by and large, have questions about Epstein. And to be told that,
he said that, I think Kash Patel made that point like a year before being nominated. But still, I think this all adds to the swirl of a bit of confusion about this and doubt. And again, the government only, I think, engenders trust among the American people with full transparency. So when Pam Bondi, and everyone knows how much I like Pam Bondi, I like her a lot. But when she says, well, those are basically never going to see the light of day. Well, was it downloaded child porn, or were there individuals engaged in acts with children? That's the question, I think. And unless either of you know what the definitive answer is, I don't know.
They talk about 1,000 victims. So was Epstein the only victimizer for that number of victims? I don't think so.
Well, just again, in general, there has not been the appropriate level of information shared. We know that.
Also breaking tonight, a feud at the Justice Department over the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. A source tells Fox News tonight that the FBI Deputy Director, Dan Bongino, has not been seen in the office since Wednesday after a heated argument with Attorney General Pam Bondi at the White House. Our correspondent David Spunt has this story.
A verbal clash between Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino at the White House this week over the release of DOJ's Epstein memo. The two-pager out earlier this week insists the convicted sex trafficker and offender killed himself, and a client list does not exist after all. Fox is told by 4 separate sources Bongino is so upset about the rollout of the memo, he didn't show up to work on Friday in protest. One source says he hasn't been seen in the office since the argument with the Attorney General. Bondi teased the release of the Epstein material for months.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
But earlier this week, when pressed,
I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
The White House is defending the Attorney General. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, in a statement to Fox News, says the president is proud of Bondi's efforts, adding the continued fixation on sowing division in President Trump's cabinet is baseless and unfounded in reality. FBI Director Kash Patel staying silent in the matter, at least publicly. He's been criticized online, along with Bondi and Bongino, by Trump supporters who feel the administration is being dismissive and not candid about Epstein. A source close to Bongino says he's thinking about resigning over this memo rollout, although no final decision has been made. Meanwhile, sources close to Director Patel and the Attorney General say they plan to stay right where they are. Aisha?
Okay, David Spunt staying on top of this one for us. Thank you, David.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the step?
Yeah, sure. If
Pam, could I just interrupt for
Sure.
1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what
this is truly unusual breaking news. You know the breaking news animation, you know sometimes the news is big, significant, serious. This one is unusual. A major escalation in what is increasingly a kind of political, quiet, peaceful civil war, but a civil war of political proportions for MAGA over these Epstein files. And it's roiling the Trump administration at quite literally the highest levels. Sources detailing the ongoing clash over a fight that could cost someone their job. Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi clashing with the FBI #2 official Dan Bongino. As everybody who follows these kind of stories knows, technically the AG oversees the FBI, but if you remember Comey or other strong-willed FBI officials, when you're at that #1, #2 level, they sometimes fight with the DOJ. Sources say Bongino is so upset about all this, he's saying maybe he'll just leave, which would be a very quick tenure, by the way. And he would be leaving in a sort of protest or criticism of Bondi's handling of the Epstein files. Other outside agitators, including Tucker Carlson, saying she's lost confidence. Maybe she has to go. He was not at work today, reportedly. Sources also say Bondi and Bongino got into a heated clash Wednesday in a high-level meeting with him, her, FBI Director Patel, and Donald Trump's #1 person who tracks all this stuff and makes the big staffing decisions, Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, who of course also ran the Victoria's campaign. Axios has a report on this where Pam says her piece, Dan says his piece, didn't end on friendly terms. Bongino left angry. And you don't need to be a scholar of reporting or Watergate level intrigue to know somebody in this small meeting is leaking this stuff to Axios if it's true. A source close to Bongino saying he ain't coming back. Out of control furious is the other quote. This destroyed his career. He's threatening to quit and torch Pam unless she's fired, said someone who, again, according to that reporting, spoke with Bongino. By the way, hire podcasters and right-wing media figures to run major parts of the government, and you may find major parts of the government are being leaked on and run like another piece of podcast content. I'll come back to how some of this does swirl around MAGA content. Other parts of it, of course, are serious when you think about the victims in the original Epstein case. All of this, though, occurred because the DOJ has fallen short of the pledges that people around Trump, including Bondi, made. There were many questions about the Epstein case. From the moment of his in-custody death, this news program, for example, has reported on those questions. There are some suspicious details. This news program has not done what a lot of the internet and MAGA right-wing sort of circles have done, which is assert without evidence what maybe happened and then wait for the government to confirm it. Now we're seeing significant backlash from MAGA, probably some of the loudest against Trump since he took office. Journalists, Other people following Doge and Musk may be reporting one set of problems to the administration, but on the right, this is the big problem. All of this is because it was partly stoked by the very people who now say nothing to see here. They stoked this conspiracy which imploded on them.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now.
In Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
What names are in there, man? You understand how many powerful people probably want this thing to desperately go away?
The FBI airmailed into that operation and said, this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is another government gangster operation.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
Release the list. That's the now vice president. The list's on my desk, the attorney general. The government gangsters, quote unquote, are in charge of all this stuff. The problem is they caught the car. All those people talking up that way now have the goods. They're in the government. They used to be pointing their finger. They found it pointing at themselves, like many an old internet meme, and it's blown up on them. So this matters politically because one or more people may be out of a job. It matters in a deeper sense because we're seeing the limits of governing by clickbait or political conspiracy theory. It also could matter if any of it got back to the real questions about the Epstein case, not whether Pam Bondi was lying when she said she had an Epstein list or is lying now when the memo says it doesn't exist, but can't be both. Now, in the FBI, there's a wider dysfunction involving some of these same people who we know from what they're saying have been spending many, many days, a lot of their energy on a client list they now say doesn't exist. But the Times is reporting that the FBI is taking the unusual step of using lie detectors for loyalty tests, subjecting personnel to questions as specific as to whether they've criticized or, quote, cast aspersions on Patel, who you just saw in that other clip talking about gangsters. This looks like something from a movie or another era, but according to the Times, it's happening. And in Trump's DOJ under Bondi, there's also a purge because there are officials who say they might be targeted not for how they're doing their job, but whether they're insufficiently, quote, politically loyal to Bondi and Trump. Fired without explanation, a culture of fear is how the Post describes it. And so one more point on all this tonight. What started as a very real question about a suspicious in-custody death. Any journalist or lawyer could tell you the government's holding a high-profile detainee and they die under suspicious circumstances. You want to investigate that. What started with something real morphed into a MAGA conspiracy theory that was sold so hard by these leaders that it's blown up in their face. And more than almost anything Trump has done thus far in the second term, and you follow the news, you're familiar with it, this is the thing saddling Trump. This is the thing that has them leaking on each other, fighting with each other, talking about not coming back to work, all because the story they sold themselves blew up on themselves. I want to bring in our experts, Michelle Goldberg from the New York Times and MSNBC analyst, and Alencia Johnson, who worked on the Harris 24 campaign and wrote Flip the Tables, Everyday Disruptor's Guide to Finding Courage and Making Change. Plenty in there for the times we're in now. Welcome to both of you. Michelle, multiple things can be true. We're all for investigating and holding the government accountable. If there were problems in the original handling of Epstein, it stretches from the Trump folks who were in charge of the Bureau of Prisons at the time. If there was further cover-up or lack of transparency, that would include, of course, the ensuing Democratic administration, and now back to the Trump folks again. So there may be good questions to ask, and yet so many of the questions that have blown up in their face seem to be of their own making. In Bondi's case, saying things that she would know to be untrue.
Yes, certainly. I mean, I should say I don't really have very many priors about this. I'm inclined to believe that if there was evidence that Epstein was murdered, or if there was evidence of a so-called client list, given that we've had first Trump in charge, then Biden, now Trump again, there would be somebody who had the incentive to leak it or to put that out there. You know, that said, there are, as you said earlier, there are a lot of weird things about this case, including now the changed metadata on the tape that they put out. But I think the key is two things. One, that Pam Bondi has made these statements that can't be reconciled. Either she was lying outright and kind of getting the MAGA people's hopes up when she said, I have this list on my desk. or she's lying now when she says no such lists exist and there's nothing there. And I think that part of it is that there's a difference between someone like Pam Bondi, who could have been a Republican official in a lot of different administrations, and someone like Dan Bongino, who is purely a creature of the MAGA world, would never be in the FBI under any other president, and then sort of has no political or entertainment future if he is seen by the MAGA base as a traitor. Pam Bondi is more of a sort of Bill Barr figure, and so they might all despise her. But if they feel really betrayed by Dan Bongino, who I think probably was a true believer that he was going to come in there and they were going to have this cathartic exposure of all their enemies, if he's now seen as being part of a cover-up, I think that's much more of a threat to him personally.
Yeah. I appreciate that breakdown. That makes a lot of sense. Alencia, I want to play the MAGA meltdown over this. For folks who aren't constantly watching The War Room or Tucker, you maybe only have heard some of it. But again, I don't think it's an overstatement that they're more upset about this than most anything that's happened in these first 170 days. Take a look.
Don't tell us all this stuff's coming out and the investigation's massive and that Trump wants it released and then say, oh, there's nothing there.
This stinks. This just reeks.
Pam Bondi needs to be fired. Who is rolling this out? The little rascals?
So I'm going to go throw up, actually.
That is so crazy. This is honestly one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
This seems like unforgivable behavior.
For them to do something like this tears my guts out.
Alencia.
It's giving Real Housewives of DC and a really nasty reunion. But, it's interesting. Your lead into that was the point that I've been thinking about. There have been so many egregious things that have happened in this administration from, we see unemployment having gone up under this administration. We see this horrible bill that happened last week. We see what is happening with these ICE raids, all of these things that have happened in this first 170 days. And this is the thing that the base is literally crying over on television and on video. And so it'll be interesting to see how moving forward, the administration actually starts to bring in some of these MAGA loyalists who, quite frankly, are these conspiracy theorists that they would campaign with, right, in 2024. They brought them into the administration, and now they are infighting, and it's leaking out publicly. Is that continuing to erode the trust that the MAGA base has with the Trump administration? And I think it will. Now, I actually don't have a lot of empathy for a lot of MAGA supporters because we've been here before in his first administration, right? He'll make one promise and then go the complete opposite direction. He continues to spew conspiracy theories, or people in his cabinet do, but yet that's actually not enough for people to pump the brakes. And the people who can pump the brakes are actually the people.
Let me jump in. But on the politics, you ran with Harris, 1.5 race, right? Had it started earlier or different things happen, 1.5 in politics, that's not a Reagan landslide, right? Things can shift. Bannon says, whatever you think of him on the politics, that if they continue to mess this up, they're going to lose 10% of their base, which in a general election, quick math, would be a 5-point swing, which is pretty striking about how big they think the issue is. Take a look.
For this to go away, you're going to lose 10% of the MAGA movement. If we lose 10% of the MAGA movement right now, we're going to lose 40 seats in 26. We're going to lose the president.
One Republican congressman predicted back in February that we'd never learn the truth about what really happened to the disgraced pedophile.
What are we going to learn? Just today, the FBI found 1,400 new files. Now, I don't know, they're as crooked as a dog's leg, as we say in East Tennessee. I don't trust any of them. I don't think we're going to get, I don't know. No, just no.
Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee, member of the House Oversight Accountability Committee, joins us now. The confident smile of a man who can say, "I told you so," is what I see on your face, sir.
I don't take any pleasure in it. I want to bury those dirt bags, but I'm afraid I was right. I've seen too much of it. And every time they're supposed to release something, they never do, whether it be UFOs, JFK, RFK. It's the nature of the beast up here.
Who are the dirtbags?
I think your second, third level tier people that are in a lot of these departments that we never get to. You have staffers and things like that on the Capitol Hill that leak things, that stop important pieces of legislation. And I just feel like you've got to, I guess I'll write about it in my book if I live to tell that day. But I think the files existed at one time. I think they were destroyed in the previous administration. And I think if they'd ever had anything on Trump, it would have been out day one. Agreed. Under the Biden administration. And I think there's some very prominent people. There's Hollywood people, but I think there's world leaders too. And would it have caused economic disruption around the globe? Maybe, but I don't really care. I want to.
You think there's a theory? Is there a theory, perhaps, that none of the, or not none, but maybe some of the people on the list didn't do anything wrong, and this would be a terrible guilt by association to put their names out, and just to put everybody's name out? No one's been charged with a crime. Put all these people's names out, and suddenly, because they had an interaction with Epstein that was completely benign, they're labeled as one of his buddies?
What's Miss Maxwell doing in jail? What did she do? Where is that? You know, who did she provide whatever she did? Why is she in jail? You know, that's got to be a question that should be asked at some point. But again, under the previous administration, we're not going to get that. Dead men tell no tales. He's dead. And
well, I just want to be clear what you're saying. Are you saying the previous administration destroyed everything, or are you saying that the Trump administration is basically doing the same thing as the previous administration?
No, I think they destroyed everything. I think.
So why wouldn't Pam Bondi say that?
She doesn't have any proof of it. I'm just telling you what I think. I mean, I've been around this town enough. I think she's got over her skis pretty much, saying all this stuff. The files are on my desk. I'm going to release it. And then she releases stuff that I knew, so I just don't think, I think they all got out there, got a little excited, and I don't think they exist. And that's my currently. I think they did it. I think they did it one time. You got an administration that lied about it, said Hunter Biden didn't, his laptop, that didn't exist. That's Russian. You had 30 of the
I know, I get all that.
Intelligence people in the country say that, and they didn't get chastised by anybody but y'all and a couple others.
No, look, we chastise everybody equally. It's why we appreciate you being willing to cut. Yeah, you know that better than most. But I want to play for you Bill O'Reilly on how he sees it. Take a listen.
Okay.
I talked to President Trump man to man, eye to eye, on St. Patrick's Day about this and the Kennedy files and the King files. It was all one conversation. And he said, and I agree, there are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name gets out, those people are destroyed.
So his theory is kind of the same as what I just put out. The flip side of that is that he also said that this is going to hurt Trump because Trump promised this, Pam Bondi promised this. They made a big deal about it in the campaign. And now there's nothing to see. You agree? You seem upset.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I don't think they ever had it. I think they were told they had it. And again, this is a bureaucrat deciding what you and I can handle. And I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. I think they could release it and say these people were not considered conspirators. I mean, they were not conspirators. They weren't considered pedophiles or involved in anything. They visited. They flew on. Trump flew on his plane, but that's just because it was on the manifest. But he didn't fly to freaking pedophile island. He flew from like Florida up to New York, and And that's what rich people do. I know
there's a
rich
difference.
people that do that all the time. There is a difference, and I think you could make that designation
between different people. I agree with you on this. What's missing from the Epstein files? Thousands of pages of investigative documents, video and digital evidence. Who knows what actually the client list was, whether there was a list or they'd have to come up with a list based on everything else. The victim information and the evidence of broader blackmail schemes. Also, why people gave him so much money to manage when he was, by all accounts, a pretty sort of average to poor money manager is something that's out there. This now from our partners at The Hill. Democrats gloat as MAGA world explodes over Epstein files. Democrats are also exploiting the division to advance another unfounded theory that Trump won't release the files because he's featured within them. But more importantly, the fact that there's this big division in MAGA world over this, what does that say to you?
I think there's a division, but of course the Democrats in the Hill are not on our side. They're going to stir everything up, just like Elon Musk. Now they're their biggest fan because he's starting some crazy third party. And so, I just don't buy that. I don't buy that. I mean, you've got these news organizations and they're friends of mine, but dadgummit, come on. They're so far to the left, they come around to the other side almost. So I don't buy that. I think there'll be another bright, shiny object out there, and folks will get distracted again. But again, this is what happens in a country where 12 to 15% of the people who are eligible to vote. You got to get educated. We got to get people in office that have some guts and have some moral. And that have some morals, and currently we're, I'm kind of in the minority in the not in the morals department, but just in the fact that I don't come from money. The big boys hate my guts. They love me the day after the election, and I get that. I get that all the time. I'll never raise the money they do. I get the threats from leadership. Or people that associate with the leadership tell me that I need to calm down on stuff, and then I remind them. I say, "Well,
is anybody telling you? Is anybody? I got to run in a minute, but I want you to answer this for me. Is anybody getting on you about the Epstein stuff? Were you ever told to pipe down about that? Are you being told now, like, let's just move on from this?
Yeah, but here's how it works. I've had them come talk to me on the floor about things, and we'll just leave it at that. Things. And I said, well, it's the truth, though, right? And they said, well, yeah, it's the truth, but you just got to quit saying it. And the way it works is kind of like I've had this stuff happen to me. It's kind of like
sounds like the mob or something.
Well, it's Washington D.C. Are you paying attention?
Some similarities.
But no, but no. I mean, I'm walking down the hall. I'm walking down the hall, and a member that I know who's a friend tells me, hey man, do we really need to dig into this? Don't you think you need to maybe back off? And
that's how it works.
Not random. That's
how it works. And we always appreciate you being willing to come on and talk about it.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.
We all know what the Trump administration did this week. Now we're getting dribs and drabs. And by the way, I said about 18 months ago on this show that people would be hearing from Jeffrey Epstein. And then I made clear he's not alive. I was never suggesting that. But I knew of tapes of Jeffrey Epstein that would get released. And let's just say I stand by my story. I mean it still 100%. Just stand by, okay? By the way, some already were released right before the election that were largely ignored because it was right before the election. But they're not done. There will be more. And you can trust me. Trust me. I don't say things I can't back up, okay? So that's happening. In any event, back to the actual substance. There's a clip of Alan Dershowitz that's gone totally viral. It was from an interview he gave Sean Spicer back in March. I'm going to play it for you. I'm going to update it for you. And then we're going to talk about what, if anything, it all means for what we're supposed to believe about the FBI's files. Here it is.
So let me tell you, I know for a fact documents are being suppressed. And they're being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them. But I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know. But I hand to God, I know the names of people whose files are being suppressed in order to protect them. And that's wrong.
Just out of curiosity, without names, are these politicians, business leaders, both?
They're everything. And let me tell you, a lot of them are, at least one of them is somebody who was accused. Others are accusers. And the judges have said, if somebody calls themselves a victim, we're not going to give any information about them. But they may not be victims. They may be perpetrators. So we don't have information about false accusers. And we know there have been many false accusers who have accused innocent people for money. And those records are being deliberately, willfully suppressed.
Very interesting. Everyone, that's sort of a Rorschach test for how you feel about this case, because people who believe the FBI is withholding names of like a pedophile ring focus on the first half, and people who don't focus on the second half. We know Alan very well. We covered very, very closely Virginia Giuffre's accusations against him. He came on the show when it was in its infancy, and we did a very deep dive into all of it. Alan has been totally exonerated on those accusations. He disproved this woman's accusations with actual receipts and plane tickets and so on. None of it held up. And ultimately, not surprisingly, she withdrew her suit against him and confessed she may have confused him with someone else, which is the best you're going to get as a guy who gets accused in these cases falsely. But we reached out to him about this soundbite, and he said, I did not talk about a client list. He said to us, let me tell you what the situation is. There are redacted statements in the FBI's file by the accuser, the same woman who accused me, Virginia Giuffre. In her statement to the FBI, she never mentioned me because she never heard of me. She didn't know me. But in the statement to the FBI, she did accuse a bunch of other people, and their names are in the report. But the report has been redacted. That's been censored, kept secret. I've seen it, however. I do know who's in that list. And I know a couple of other people who have been accused as well. I don't know whether or not they actually did anything wrong. I know they were accused mostly by the same woman who falsely accused me. We're talking about Virginia Giuffre. And one of the things that's been suppressed is all the information that is negative to the accusers, the information that proves the accusers made up the stories. So it's much more complicated. There's no client list, he says. There are names of people who are accused, and there are names of people who falsely accuse them. That's all there is. It's a redacted FBI report in which Virginia Giuffre names people, and I know who the people are, and the court has kept the list secret and has refused to unredact the list. Okay, so what he seems to be saying, guys, is it's not just Alan who was accused by Virginia, or Prince Andrew who was accused by Virginia, or Epstein who was accused by Virginia. The list goes on. But that, and there appears to be more than just Virginia as an accuser in these files. But she's got a very sketchy history with the truth. She's recently deceased. But there's no question Virginia lied about Alan. And I'm sure she did lie about others. And so he's basically saying the so-called files are more ambiguous than people who believe there's a mass pedophile ring would want you to believe. And Alan believes it should all be released, and that these other guys who get accused in these files should have to defend themselves the same way Alan had to by, disputing each charge. He doesn't like what's happening with either a court holding back redacted documents or the FBI just sort of saying in a sweeping manner, there's nothing to see here, move on. Viva, I'll start with you on it, and then I'll get to you, Dave.
Well, we're using this term client list in a very, convenient manner where it either has a strict definition that can be weaseled out of. So they say it's not a client list. I think everybody understands what is meant by the client list. Unindicted co-conspirators or the actual clients of Jeffrey Epstein, not as said by Dan Bondi en passant for a Fox interview, as put to a letter that she signed to Kash Patel in February 2025, where she says, I've got a list of Jeffrey Epstein and his clients. That's what people want to understand and want to know here. Not whether or not there's a mass pedophile list and you had a client list. Here's Mr. Jane Doe's favorite, person, whatever. They want to know who was involved in this sex trafficking ring that involved thousands of people, that spanned decades, that warranted him setting up cameras in his island so that he could capture videos, not of himself only with these ladies, with these women and girls, but the people who went to his island. People have been told for years that there were unindicted co-conspirators, that there were other people involved in the sex trafficking. You don't go to jail for sex trafficking to nobody but yourself and then come out later and say, there is no client list, there is no unindicted co-conspirators. And when Pam Bondi wrote in a letter that we have Epstein and a list of his clients, that she didn't mean a list of his clients. So whether or not it has the title client list, people, I say not have been led to believe, it only stands to reason from everything that we've known for the last decade plus. Other people were involved, as Dershowitz says, either as false accusers or as accused, because Epstein wasn't doing this for himself. The videos that they had at his place that they seized were not only of himself, they are ambiguous as to whether or not it was child pornography that was downloaded or produced. And now they just want to sweep it under the rug with an unsigned, undated memo uploaded to the DOJ after it's leaked to Axios. Don't expect anybody to believe that.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yes, I have a lot of respect for Professor Dershowitz. He was my law professor, and you don't have to just trust or believe him about Virginia Giuffre's credibility issues, because prosecutors felt the same way. That's why she was not called to testify in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. And so, yes, she did have credibility issues. And as far as what's still out there, one thing that I'm interested in is what's on the thumb drives that were taken from Jeffrey Epstein's apartment on July 6th and 7th of 2019, when the authorities raided his place and had to use a saw to get into his safe. And they recovered a bunch of thumb drives. It's not clear whether the contents of that have ever been disclosed. And as you correctly said,
just to confirm what you said, Dave, because I lost it. Did you say at his place in Florida or his place in New York?
New York. This is from New York.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, there was a safe there, and they had to use a saw to get in it, and they recovered all these thumb drives. And it's not clear whether that's ever been made public. They found cash, diamonds, and passports, and these thumb drives. Now, part of the problem is that you're dealing with, as you correctly said, judges who have put a kibosh on it, as well as a decision by the FBI. I think the FBI's decision is more discretionary because they are trying to protect names of victims, child porn, and all these things that they don't want disclosed. If there are names of individuals who are directly tied to this, then it should be disclosed. And even if there are names of people who are affiliated, like in the Black Book, who are not part of Epstein Island, I think the public is sophisticated enough where if you release everyone's names, they can sort out who was part of the pedophilia ring and who just was an associate, someone who knew Jeffrey Epstein. Just because you're in his Black Book, just because you knew him, doesn't mean you're a pedophile. But I think the FBI and the Trump administration is being very careful about that. They don't want to tar people who are not guilty of any crimes, and perhaps the president himself is concerned himself being mentioned in that same category, even though there's no proof he committed any of the crimes. So I get why they're very careful, but until you be more transparent, you're going to have all these questions out there and all these bloggers, and Viva is right to ask these questions. And so they're going to have to do something because this story is not going away.
Mm-hmm. There's a woman, I want to make sure I have her title correct. Her name is Sigrid McCauley, and she's an attorney representing people who are suing Epstein's former accountant. This is one of the last Epstein cases that's in federal court. She went on News Nation, spoke to Elizabeth Vargas, I think on Wednesday. And here's what she said. Take a listen to SOT 4.
What's really just astonishing about this recent disclosure from the government is that they know they are sitting on a treasure trove of information and they're not turning it over. And I've worked on these cases for over 10 years now. There's a plethora of information that the public has not been able to see relating to Epstein and his co-conspirators.
What kind of information?
All kinds of information. I mean, certainly if you look at what the government recently disclosed, the first time Pam Bondi came out and gave us some information, you'll see a list where they took multiple computers, multiple items from the houses. You know, what was on those computers? The public has not seen that. What do the financial records tell us? Do they tell us that money was being given to him by certain individuals, that money was flowing out to certain individuals? All of that is critical for the public to be able to know.
That was a very good last question there, Viva.
Yeah, it's that people were involved in this. And we know that video was seized, and now we're led to believe A decade later, it was only child pornography and only for Jeffrey Epstein's personal pleasure. I mean, it doesn't pass the smell test. And it's not to hold people to their statements before they were in office. I happen to personally believe Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, what they said for years, what Kash Patel said very recently, December 2023, there's a list. Bill Gates, you don't think Bill Gates is lobbying the government to not release the list? The bottom line is, who went to the island? Why was Ehud Barak visiting Jeffrey Epstein 30 times after he was a known convicted solicitor of child prostitution? Ehud Barak's explanation, I didn't know that he was convicted. My goodness, I do background checks on babysitters. I don't believe that the former prime minister of Israel didn't do background checks on Epstein. And we're sitting here after years and decades of this. Trump promised to declassify the information. You have Bindergate, you have Bondi on letters saying a list of Epstein's clients. Then you have the Bindergate, which humiliates a bunch of influencers. And then we're told phase one has now turned into nothing. Go home. There's an unsigned memo saying it was all conspiracy, and anybody perpetrating or perpetuating this right now is doing a disservice to the victims and the government. I mean, I don't know how you expect people to believe that, even if it's true. 10 hours of footage of a cell, and we still have questions as to whether or not it's even the right cell, is not going to confirm that Epstein killed himself. And even if you have 10 hours of Epstein's cell showing nobody went in and checked on him every 20 to 30 minutes, a man who was on suicide watch 20 minutes earlier, itself is a conspiracy. So, being told to sit down, be quiet, and stop asking questions is itself a conspiracy.
What do you make of that, Dave? I mean, I know you've been somewhat defensive of Pam Bondi, who you know as a former Florida attorney.
I believe she misspoke, and I think I believe her when she says that what she was referring to was the file was on her desk, not a client list. There is no evidence that there's a client list, the list of all the Johns out there. I mean, if that existed, Ghislaine Maxwell would have given that up in exchange for her freedom. There's been no evidence. And I also looked to the reporters who were the first ones, the Julie Browns, who helped break this story again, at least put it back in the public's consciousness. Tara Palmieri and others who are close to it, and they have said there is no client list. So there's no evidence of any client list. So I think that the sin of the administration perhaps is trying to appease the conspiracy theorists. And now when you're in the role of being in government, you have a different role than you were when you're a blogger. When Bongino and Kash Patel were out there blogging, yes, you can help perpetuate conspiracy theorists. But when you're in charge, you got to deal with facts, and they're dealing with the facts.
Since President Trump was sworn in, his administration has made enormous progress at a breakneck pace. But don't forget, while they're moving mountains for the good of the nation, you've got your own personal savings to worry about. And one of the best ways to look after your savings is through diversification, particularly with gold, like from Birch Gold Group. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 40%. OMG. Central banks continue to bolster demand for gold by buying in record quantities. Global instability and tension is high, and Birch Gold makes owning physical gold extremely easy. Easily convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or buy some to store in your home safe. Just text MK to the number 989898, and Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, take control of your savings today. Text MK to the number 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.
There is major turmoil inside the Justice Department tonight over the handling of files in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Sources tell ABC News there was a fiery confrontation between Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, and that Bongino has told allies he may resign. Here's ABC's Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, turmoil at the top levels of the Justice Department. Sources tell ABC News of a fiery confrontation between Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino and Attorney General Pam Bondi over the department's handling of the investigation into sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Sources tell us Bongino did not come to work today and has told allies he may resign. For years, Bongino, a former podcast host, and his boss, FBI Director Kash Patel, stoked conspiracy theories over Epstein's death, insisting shadowy forces within the government engaged in a massive cover-up.
Folks, you're going to see a lot of names on that.
The Epstein client list, I believe, based on what I've heard from sources and the story I just told you, basically, is going to rock the political world. There's a reason they're hiding it.
Attorney General Bondi promised to deliver answers.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
But this week, DOJ released a memo saying there's actually no client list at all. Bondi asked to explain.
I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
DOJ also said Epstein did in fact die by suicide and that there was no credible evidence found that he blackmailed prominent individuals, and declared it would not be releasing any more information about the case. President Trump on Tuesday tried to change the subject.
Are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
All week long, growing outrage from some of Trump's top supporters who are counting on the release of the Epstein Files and are now demanding answers. Lindsay, tonight the future of the FBI's second in command is uncertain. But today, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche weighing in on the record saying Bongino signed off on DOJ's conclusions on the Epstein Files, posting the suggestion by anyone that there was any daylight between the FBI leadership and DOJ leadership on the memo's composition and release is patently false. Lindsay?
Pierre Thomas for us. Thank you.
Okay, let's bring in the big man, Bill O'Reilly. Bill, thank you for joining us. Good to see you.
You're welcome,
Let's start with the easy one, and then we'll get to what we were just hearing from Swalwell about what we're seeing on the left, which is unlike anything I've ever heard from the Democratic Party in my life. The Epstein thing. I think that this is a hoisted on your own petard. I don't think it's a big value situation because I never believed any of the conspiratorial talk. But the president is not well served by the people around him on this one. I don't think he really cares about Epstein one way or the other, and I don't believe there's anything in the files that kills him. But the people around him botched this, Bill, because they fed all these people this conspiracy fodder about this, and then Bondi 1 minute says it's on her desk, the next minute there's nothing to it. Kash Patel and Bongino, who made such a market in the conspiracy, all of a sudden say it's not true. It's a terrible look for the administration. What's your take?
Well, I think President Trump could correct it anytime he wants to correct it. And that's the question, is I don't know why he doesn't. So all you got to do is say to the Attorney General, you're going to hold a press conference. You're going to tell him generally what we've learned about the Epstein case in a very methodical way. You'll answer some questions. You're not to mention any names because that could destroy people. I talked to President Trump man to man, eye to eye, on St. Patrick's Day about this and the Kennedy files and the King files. It was all one conversation. And he said, and I agree, there are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name gets out, those people are destroyed. Because there's not going to be any context. Media doesn't care about context. So you can't do that. You can't destroy human beings by putting out the files, whatever they may be. But you certainly can have Attorney General Bondi say, this is what we know. And, you know, we're going to protect the innocent. And he's a heinous individual. In that press conference, sitting next to Pam Bondi, should be Merrick Garland, the Attorney General and Joe Biden, who had this material for 4 years. 4 years.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Biden had it. Yeah, you don't hear that from the left, do you? No,
listen, what you do hear, which I agree with, is if Merrick Garland had stuff on Trump that's in there, he would have given it to him. Now, I have to say something. There's a point of clarification. 100%. But there's a point of clarification here. People are going to hear your explanation, and they may think, oh, yeah, he wants to protect all his buddies because they were scumbags who were in the... No, that's not the point. It's the opposite point. I don't believe there is a client list. I think Bondi made a mistake when she suggested they had a client list. I don't think Epstein had anything like that. I think they have videos where he is doing disgusting things with people, but they're none of the people that people are headhunting for. And the other point is something that people will never give the president credit for, maybe me among them. But there is no client list. And if you put people's names out, they are going to sue the government and they are going to win, because they are going to show that the government had reason to know that there was nothing felonious in their relationship with Epstein, and they put out information that was defamatory anyway. And that's the reason not to do it. You're going to ruin people's lives who had nothing to do with the behavior.
Well,
but when people hear it, it sounds like a cover-up.
Trump and I were talking about unintended consequences, not legalities. And I agree with him, but this is not a difficult thing to do, shouldn't be anyway, for Ms. Bondi. And then you can find Merrick Garland's probably at a Club Med somewhere in the Caribbean, just get him out. And
he won't come on, but it's a good point.
Now, you made a couple of mistakes earlier that I'm going to correct in a gentle way, because that's, of course, who I am. Number one, I don't have any buddies to protect, so anybody who would say that would be totally insane. Number two, we have seen this kind of hatred on the left before, and it happened during the Vietnam War, that you had a radical element in the Democratic Party that was supporting the Black Panthers, for example, that were calling for murder. You had Jane Fonda sitting on an anti-aircraft gun in North Vietnam while the war was going on. That's about as extreme as you get. So this has happened before. But I don't believe that most Democrats buy into this at all. I think Murphy is irresponsible in Connecticut. I think he's a loon. I don't respect him at all. Swalwell, I do respect. I don't think he's a loon. I think he understands what's happening. But remember this, Cuomo. You get headlines by being the bomb thrower. That gets you attention. But this has happened before in our history. There's no doubt about it. But now we're in a position where the Trump administration is winning. That may end tomorrow, but it's winning. Got the big bill, got the Iranian diminishment. It's winning. And that is driving people insane on the left.
Look, I think there is a part of that. I just think that there are a lot of opportunities for Democrats to show that they would have better remedies for what is pissing people off about affordability and other inequities in the society. The real ones
I don't
did.
believe most
Bill, my father did.
I don't believe most Democrats think that Trump is responsible for the Guadalupe River. I just don't. I think it's 10%.
Oh, no, I agree with you.
And a lot of them
I agree with you.
A lot of them are on MSNBC because they make money doing that.
But that's how you make it. But that's how you make it. And that's why they're doing it. I agree with you about the ratio. And they know it's poor form. They know it's poor form. Like I made the joke about Murphy. It's like going to a funeral for a guy who died of a heart attack and talking about his diet. It's not the right time.
And consumption. But there are
and
bad,
you're only doing it.
There are bad hombres on the Hill.
Yeah.
There are bad.
There's no question.
Let me a little personal thing here, Kwame. You ready? You okay? You ready for the personal thing?
Yeah, I'm so far.
So Saturday night, I one of the few parties that I'm invited to because people don't like me. Your brother was there. I had a nice conversation about you weightlifting, and I said to him, "Governor, do you lift those weights? Are you?" I don't think he does. And then I sat right behind Senator Schumer, the most powerful Democrat in the country by title. Okay, he's finished. I'm telling you, the man. I was watching him. He didn't want to talk to me, of course. Once he didn't stick up for the Jewish students at Columbia, I just laced him. I just annihilated Schumer on WABC.
Been quiet
radio.
About the attacks on the ICE officers also.
Right. Well, he's through. And he knows Ocasio-Cortez is going to beat him in a primary if she chooses to run. But anyway,
like an egg.
I'm at this place, and I'm looking at what was once the most powerful Democrats in the country. It has collapsed. And that is the problem with the Democratic Party right now. No leadership at all.
And the vacuum is being filled with animosity, with grievance, with aggression.
Loons.
AOC and Bernie
Loons.
Run on the same oligarchy lines that the terrorists going after the ICE guys used. And I'm not blaming AOC and Bernie, but I'll tell you what I do blame them for, not saying anything about it.
Why not?
Right now they should be outspoken.
Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez are dangerous people, just like Mandani is dangerous. These are dangerous people. They want to blow the whole country up. Talk about working people getting it right between the eyes. I've researched this Mandani, who may be the next New York mayor. He's doing a Fidel Castro playbook almost word for word. You look back in Castro and what he was saying in 1958, Mandami's read it because he's spouting the same stuff. It's unbelievable.
But look, I don't cover the race because Andrew was in it. But what I'm saying is Mamdani, I wouldn't discount the grievance. What he is marshaling with AOC, with Bernie, is real. Just as it was on the MAGA side, these people are disaffected and they're angry. Well, it's dangerous if their legitimate outrage doesn't find recourse. Then it gets dangerous. But I felt the same way about what Trump did with his populist movement in the beginning.
Those people are dangerous. Sanders is a communist. He wants to blow up the capitalistic system. And Ocasio-Cortez doesn't even know what communism is, I'll submit to you. She would never sit for an interview with you or me because it would last about 2 minutes and she'd be weeping. All right? No frame of reference, doesn't understand
I may be
history,
weeping. She may punch
doesn't
me
know
in
how
the
to
face.
run anything. Well, I predict she'll wind up on a View someday. That's where she'll be, okay? But, and I know I'm being harsh here, but I have to tell the truth. These are dangerous people. There's no rationalization for what they're espousing. Seizure of private property, dismantlement of the country's economic system, which provides more opportunity than any other country on earth. They want to blow it up. They're dangerous people.
I think that it's about, here's what I want to be careful about. And Bill, as always, I thank you for being here. And I know you tried to kill me with my brother. You two were overheard, and you both matched your invective towards me. You were both very nasty, and if I had been there, I would have clapped you together like cymbals.
We were making fun of you. Gently.
Yeah, I know.
Gently.
No,
Cuomo.
It wasn't gentle. It was overheard, and you two deserve each other. But let me say this.
It was overheard by who? Give me a name.
No.
Don't give me an anonymous source. Give me a name.
Lolly told me. Lolly told me.
Okay.
Lolly told me.
She's on the other side
Lolly
of the
told
room.
me. Lolly told me. Big mouth. But hold on. This is the only thing I want to be careful about. Is the people, the working people who voted for Trump are right to be desperate for something better. The working people that came out in Brooklyn and in Queens in this primary are also right to feel desperate and to want something better. It's what is being sold to them as a remedy that I believe can get very dangerous very fast. And I think it's a really important distinction to make. It's how we had the deplorables issue. I've said from the beginning, not everyone who backs President Trump is a bigot. It's just that he did happen to have a lot of bigots in the beginning who were backing him. This is the same thing. They're not all whack jobs on the left. They're not all going to attack ICE agents. But there are extremists in those ranks now. And we're going to live
absolutely. And that's why the ICE people, are protecting their families with masks.
Yeah,
One more,
listen,
just a quick plug.
Go ahead.
I am like dominating YouTube now. I don't even know how it happens. I don't even know how to get on YouTube. But apparently my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Bill O'Reilly, is exploding. Now, one of the reasons is that I'm taking topics that I don't do on the No Spin News, I don't do on News Nation, and I do about 12 minutes. And the topic this week fits right into what you were asking. The disenchantment of people who are not succeeding in America. But they are exploiting this, and they want to create, they being the radical left, a welfare state. Exceedingly dangerous. So check it out on YouTube. Cuomo, you'll be a better man for it.
I blocked you. Bill O'Reilly, thank you for being on. As always, appreciate you.
Okay.
Take care.
All right.
He did trash me with my brother, though.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.